And welcome, everyone. I'm Bill Newell, joined by Phil Stacy, sports editor of the Salem News, and Nick Kukuru from the Gloucester Times. And we'll see if other folks join us along the way here as we have our first session or a little podcast, Zoomcast, whatever, in 2021. So, so here we are.
New Year, guys.
Happy New Year, yeah.
Happy New Year.
Does it feel any different, you guys, 2021 from 2020? What do you think?
Well,
yeah.
I mean, you feel, at least with the calendar turning, maybe there's a little bit of hope or light at the end of the tunnel, so to speak. We're certainly not there yet, and probably won't be for a while, but at some point there will be. So there's that to hang your hat on, so to speak.
Yeah. So we have, we'll see what happens. I thought what we could do is maybe look back a bit at 2020. I'm not a big fan of those retrospectives, but they are useful because there are things that are obvious that, for me, I would forget. But I know, Phil, in the paper on Friday, you guys posted some columns, you, Nick, and Matt, on some of your particular highlights for 2020. I figured that might be a good spot to start. I know I could share one of the ones that Nick Giannino had in his column. But maybe some thoughts from you, Phil, on what were a few of the highlights for 2020 and what was in your headline, it says a dark year, which it was. Yeah.
It was. I mean, well, obviously, I don't know if it's a highlight, but it's something that stands out. We had an entire season canceled, which has never happened before. I've been on the job 31 years. That's obviously never been the case. To my knowledge, it hasn't, unless you go back to maybe during World War II, or maybe even further back, World War I, when they didn't play football for a season or two. It's been a long time, in other words, since the spring was wiped out, and you think back now to that 9 months ago, 9.5 months, I guess now, and it seems almost quaint. We didn't know what was going to transpire in mid-March, early April. We just knew that things were shut down at that point. And, was there going to be a season at all? Were we going to get back to normal? All these different things. And as we know, we weren't able to have a spring season. So I don't know that it's memorable for all those seniors who missed out on playing softball and baseball and lacrosse and tennis and outdoor track that never got a chance to do that. But it's it stands out from this year. That's certainly one. We had a good winter season last year. Had some teams reach their respective state semifinals. I think you were going to touch on the fact that the Beverly boys won the North title, which Nick Giannino chronicled in our pages. You had Lynn English boys looked by every metric out there like they were going to probably win another state title if that state title game were played. Had a pretty classic North final against Lowell, if I remember correctly.
Yes.
So it certainly was memorable for them. St. John's Prep hockey went to the Super 8 semifinals. They have the distinction, they and Pope Francis, their opponent that night, of playing the last ever 2019-2020 MIAA event. That was the last game. It ended probably 45 minutes after that Beverly boys basketball game, state semifinals at the Garden did. And after that was done, there were no more games. So I wrote about that game for my pre-pandemic memory, not so much for the game itself. It was a great game. Pope Francis beat St. John's Prep in overtime, kind of a fluky goal. For me, it was more what I witnessed afterwards. Clearly, players, you reach that far in a season, you lose, especially the way you lose, sudden, shocking, sudden death. It hurts, it's painful in the moment, there's anger, all these different things that high school kids go through. And a lot of the boys, understandably, coming off the ice were peeved and, hit with all this emotion, knowing that their season was over, or some of the boys, their careers were over. Throwing sticks, slamming helmets, whatever. And I was waiting outside the locker room, and Captain Jack Gilligan came off the ice, never said a word, didn't make eye contact with me, certainly. And he just went about picking up all the sticks. There were a couple of broken sticks and some other things all over the place. He just picked everything up, put it in a neat pile, took a deep breath, and went in the locker room with the rest of his teammates. And to me, that kind of, really showed what leadership is about. No one's looking, so to speak. I was there, but no one was watching. And he just did the right thing in the right moment, knowing that if he didn't do it, someone else was going to have to do it. Maybe it was a worker at the rink. Maybe it was one of his coaches. He just took it upon himself to be a leader of his team. And, that's what he did. And that really stuck out to me. As for once we got going into the games, thankfully, we had summer ball and golf. And then we managed to get a fall season, which was terrific. I think with the student athletes, especially in the Northeastern Conference, with a lot of those peaceful protests, which were no doubt a continuation of what they witnessed over the summer take place across the country. People using their voices to be heard in a peaceful way. That's what these student athletes did to get their seasons played. And I thought it was terrific that they were able to do so. And for me, what I wrote about there was two different instances, both involving field hockey teams. One was Masconomet, and then a week later was Danvers. Their respective seasons end. There's no state tournament. There's no team banquets or anything. And they both had kind of impromptu celebrations, socially distanced, of course. And I really hope we don't have to say that phrase a lot in 2021. But for now, we still need to. Masconomet went 10-0. They blew through the Northeastern Conference. Nobody touched them. They smoked everybody. They probably, would have been a pretty good bet to win a state title this year had there been a state tournament. But they were just happy after their last game to celebrate with their parents, their coaches. They had some, pastries or cookies or whatnot. And, they all got to be together, took a group photo with masks on, things like that. And that was pretty cool. And Danvers a week later did the same thing after their final game. They had a night game, and their coach, Jill McGinnity, who wound up retiring like a week later to spend more time with her family, had purchased a piñata and hung it from the goal post at Morse Field at Danvers High School. And the players took turns swinging at it with their field hockey sticks before all this candy spilled out. And I thought, wow, that's a pretty cool way to, end the season for these guys. It's a season unlike any other, so why not do something different? And I thought those two things are pretty cool. So I'll end by talking for what it seems like the entirety of 2020 here by just saying I wanted to choose items that were not, oh, this was a great game or what a terrific play or whatever. Not that those things are wrong, but for me, I just wanted to, in a year that was unlike any other, I wanted to try to pick out events that stood out to me for those reasons. And I think those three encapsulate pretty well what 2020 in North Shore sports meant to me.
Just so folks know, Nick he is able to talk here in 2021. We just haven't heard much from him yet. And even though we don't have a piñata today, Phil, maybe we can, I'll pass out some cookies right at the end for all of you guys, if that's all right.
Yeah, well, that'd be all right. All right,
Well, I'll follow up on one of your notes in just a moment, but Nick, why don't I shoot it up to you and see what you're thinking here?
Yeah, well, I got far less room to cover than Phil, so it's not, 3 schools compared to 13, 14. There's a lot, less room for me to cover. But yeah, I mean, I did something similar, just kind of wrapping up the year this week. I mean, that loss of that spring kind of is really big on Cape Ann. It's easily the best season as far as, the local teams that I cover. They had 3 teams in the state championship game in the spring of 2019. And, I didn't get, I want to say last winter, nobody made the sectional semifinals, and, spring of 2019, 6 teams made the sectional semifinals. So it's one of the stronger seasons, but winter 2020 was still, pretty interesting. We had, it it was kind of milestone moments. A couple players. Marcus Montanino for Gloucester boys basketball. He finished up as the third all-time leading scorer in program history, 1,293 points. And then you had EJ Field for hockey. He finished up sixth all-time leading scorer for Gloucester, 131 career points. So that was a big deal for the two of them in 2020. And we also had, in the fall, she had set all the records in 2019, but Mia Sala ended her field hockey career as the program's all-time leading scorer as well with 124 points. So it was. That was the big, those are the three big highlights for Gloucester, at least in 2020. Pretty tough without a spring because, their softball and baseball teams would have been stacked again. And for Rockport actually had a really good, 2020 calendar year that started with their girls basketball team making the tournament, hosting a game and winning a game for the first time since the 1980s. So it was a long time coming for them. They got to the Division IV North quarterfinals. They ended up getting bounced by Maimonides, but it was their best season in almost 40 years. And then obviously in the fall, the boys soccer team and the golf team win the Cape Ann League championships. So that was the golf team's first Cal title since the 1970s. So it was an even longer time coming for them to win a league championship, which was great to see. And then Manchester Essex, they were up to their usual antics. Everybody made the tournament, in the winter of 2020. And then you had, field hockey took the outright Cape Ann League championship in the fall, as well as the boys cross country team took the Baker Division championship. So they were, they had a pretty successful season too. But, hopefully we can get that spring in 2021 because that's where, the real contenders are on Cape Ann.
Well, let's be optimistic about that. That's for sure. Phil, I want to just follow up. You mentioned the basketball piece. You mentioned the Beverly boys basketball team and Lynn English, actually. So, both of those programs really have had very strong last couple of years, peaking both again in 2020, in the spring of 2020. And you mentioned the Beverly team. The Beverly boys basketball team played on that night where that was the last night that everybody played or that anybody played in the spring tournament. I think English had won their semifinal game the night before. Beverly lost to Whitman Hanson, to Bob Rogers' team. What an outstanding team that was that they lost to. But it speaks to the job that Coach Matt Karakutis and of Beverly and Antonio Anderson of Lynn English have done the last few years at their programs. Really a pleasure to watch both of those squads, and I really loved watching that Beverly basketball, both teams the last couple of years, and. I'm just blank. I have a note over here, but two players that just have had terrific careers and now have graduated from Beverly, Jack Crowley and Duncan Moreland. They're two kind of twin towers, if you will, not super towers, but forwards, if you will, regular forwards. Graduated from this past team, but hopefully they'll get into action here in the days ahead in 2021. But it won't be the same. It won't be the same for sure. But that's the way this last 12 months, has been for sure. But again, that Beverly basketball team losing at the Garden on that Wednesday night, I think that was the last night. There were no other games after that. So,
no. And I was following closely from out in Hingham, where I was at the St. John's Prep hockey game. Matt Williams and Nick Giannino were there covering for us at the Garden, and I was kind of following along on Twitter, and when they fell behind early, that was kind of a bummer. It seemed like that Whitman Hanson team was explosive. But really, I know it's easy to say this, but I don't think it takes away from the wonderful season that Beverly had.
No.
The remarkable run that they had. As you said, Crowley and Moreland were super complementary to each other. They had a lot of other I don't want to call them role players on the team, but other guys who stepped up around them and filled in a lot of voids. It seemed like they were selfless. There was a lot of ball movement. Like you said, Matt Karakutis and his staff did a great job winning that North title up in Lowell. The Saturday beforehand was a terrific feat for Beverly. Beverly has had, some really good basketball players over the years, but a tough go of it in the state tournament. They've never really had that successful run. People, when I was growing up, used to say, the teams in the I think it was the 1980 team with Peter Wynn, who went on to play
Yeah.
at Syracuse. I was a kid at the time, and I saw him play once or twice, but they lost to Patrick Ewing in Cambridge and Latin State tournament, and that was like the greatest ever team at the, let's say in modern times or whatever. Beverly had a lot of good players since then, but just could never get over that tournament hump. So it was great to see those guys do so last year. And as for English, I can't in any way, shape, or form call myself an expert on Lynn English basketball, but what they've done, as you said, Antonio Anderson, for the last 2 years, they've just been a powerhouse, steamrolling everybody that they play, whether it's in conference, out of conference. Didn't they go out and play in was it North Dakota or South Dakota last year?
Yeah, they
and
did.
played
Yeah.
some state champions out there. So obviously they're going. They're willing to go on and take on. They're willing to go out, I should say, and take on all comers to challenge themselves and see how they match up against great competition. And that's a great thing to see. I know they struggle in certain sports, but basketball is certainly not one of them. And it's a great thing for them. I think they can proudly call themselves 2-time state champions, and no
Yep.
one is going to dispute that.
No, then they got those state titles. Yeah, that's how the MIA did it this past spring and whatever.
Right.
Yeah. So that's 2020, and we've touched on just a handful of highlights. But as you mentioned, one of the seasons was completely wiped out, and now it seems like in the last few weeks, our coverage or the coverage in the papers have been Bishop Fenwick and St. Mary's. They're the two teams that are playing, that are getting all their sports, getting all the coverage in the local papers and so on. But they are playing and they're underway. But other teams will be getting underway soon, right, Phil and Nick?
Yeah, I mean, so later this morning, I'm going over to Peabody. Hamilton-Wenham opens up its hockey season against Linfield today at noon. So I'm going to go and check that out. There are no fans allowed over at McVan O'Keefe, but I want to throw a shout out to Paul Judas and his staff over at the rink for allowing myself in there to watch and cover the game today. I'll be back there tomorrow morning for Bishop Fenwick girls. They open their season today on the road. I think down at Bishop Stang, but they'll be playing their home opener, the girls hockey team, tomorrow morning against Archbishop Williams. So I'll be back there while Matt Williams enjoys his last few days of vacation, doing a little pinch hitting with the girls hockey, but excited to watch the Lady Crusaders play. And then this week we'll be starting up. In fact, Kooks, I believe that Hamilton-Wenham and Rockport hockey were scheduled to play this weekend today, I think, but that got pushed off. But I know Rockport will be starting.
Yeah, February 7th, that one got pushed to, I believe. So I think Rockport's up a week from Wednesday now because they don't have a game Saturday. Yeah.
Okay. And Gloucester opens up Saturday, a week from today, against Peabody at Talbot, right?
Yep.
And Bill, we will have other teams starting during the week. We get some KPN League basketball games beginning on Tuesday. I know Hamilton-Wenham is playing North Reading boys and girls. Ipswich is playing Newburyport boys and girls. I want to say that Essex Tech is starting some games this week. Girls basketball, I want to say, plays Lowell Catholic on Wednesday. Boys hockey opens up at Chelmsford Thursday against Neshoba/Greater Lowell. And then Friday night, we get a somewhat normal basketball schedule with the teams that have been allowed to practice so far. Your Beverlys, your Masconomet, your Marbleheads, your Gloucesters, schools like that will be opening up Friday night. And then we'll have some more hockey games opening up on Saturday as well. I know you have Beverly at Winthrop. As I mentioned, Peabody at Gloucester. I know Hamilton-Wenham is going to play again next Saturday. So slowly but surely, we're getting back into the swing of things. And the other thing is, we'll see some other schools that have not started practicing yet begin to do so this coming week. So Danvers is scheduled to start this week. Swampscott is scheduled to start this week, things like that. So while I do hear of, COVID cases or suspicion of it or whatever, and teams have to pause and not practice. And, you have minimal practices maybe before a game. Everyone is trying to get through as best they can and trying to make this happen. So I should also say I have been to one game already, day after Christmas. We could go today, actually. I went over to Connery Rink and Lynn. Fenwick and St. Mary's did play hockey. St. Mary's won going away 10-1. But the folks over at the Lynn Rink did a great job. There were maybe 40 fans there, 2 per player for St. Mary's, none for the visitors. Everyone was spread apart. I had my own little corner of the rink down along the boards, which was good. A couple photographers there, same thing. Coaches, players, certainly, game officials, all didn't use the locker rooms, but they kind of had spaces outside where the locker rooms would be in different parts of the rink. So it worked okay. And you just have to go with the flow and know that that's how it's going to be this year.
Phil, share with us and Nick too the winter season itself. It'll be an abbreviated season, albeit it has to be abbreviated since most people are really haven't even started yet,
right?
Other than the Fenwicks and St. Mary's as we talked about. But it all has to end soon. It'll end by late February, right? I mean, I don't know I can't remember the exact date. I'm sorry, but
I want to say it's February 22nd.
Yeah, that sounds.
21st.
Yeah, that's the start date of the fall 2 preseason, February 22nd. So
okay, so February 21st then. I know just from typing in lots of schedules, or what we hope will be the schedules at that time. We have plenty of action on that Saturday, February 20th. So the hope is that everybody can go all the way through. I think some schools have built in an extra week where if they do have to postpone games or push them off, they can play them in that last week. For us in the news business, obviously we want everyone to be healthy and safe and can play, but as long as we have some games to cover and present to our readers and know that there are stories out there to tell, we're going to be happy to go out and report on those.
Nick, anything else coming up this week from your point of view up there?
Yeah, I mean, everybody's pretty much basketball and hockey starting in the next, week and a half or so. I know Rockport basketball was supposed to play Amesbury Tuesday. I know they're kind of on a 2-week pause, so I think that game's in jeopardy. So they may be starting Friday against Triton. But Manchester Essex basketball's up on Tuesday against Linfield, and the girls at home, boys away. And Gloucester basketball starts at the end of the week, Friday.
Yeah.
What's nice too, I see about the basketball, we have some earlier start times for a lot of schools this year.
Yeah.
Where they certainly want to have time to clean thoroughly between, say, like a JV game and a varsity game, or in some instances, freshman JV varsity. They got to wipe everything down and make sure everything's completely clean before anybody else comes on there. But we're seeing a lot of 6 p.m. starts as opposed to 7 or 7:30s. Some, I know, like Danvers, all their varsity home games this year are 4 p.m., which for those of us with deadlines, that's awesome during the winter season. So again, it's just part of the changes that we'll all get used to here. I know we've talked before in the past, and Nick, your teams don't really have to deal with this too much because Talbot Rink is open, but a lot of our schools are hitting the road for so-called home hockey games this year, whether it's in Saugus at Kaskabooski or Cronin Rink in Revere, or the Essex Sports Center in Middleton, or Larson Rink in Winthrop. I mean, I probably made mention of this before. Beverly Danvers are playing hockey games in Winthrop. Was one team a home team, or playing games up at the Haverhill Forum, the Valley Forum in Haverhill. So you just got to roll with the punches. And I'll say that same thing to parents too. I hear parents are upset that sometimes they can't go and watch the kids play, or, some fans are allowed, but others aren't on. And it's just like, you just got to roll with the punches here. I know it's easy for me to say. My kids are not playing high school sports. But, what are you going to do? We're still in a pandemic. It's just, if you're being overly cautious, I don't think that's a bad thing. So, rely on us. We'll get you the information. We'll tweet from the games, or people will live stream or whatever. Just kind of roll the punches and take it for what it is.
Yeah.
I'll get off my soapbox now. But.
Yeah. I mean, as I think about it, though, I'm glad you brought that point up. It is too bad. I mean, if you're a parent that, that you can't, that a school, you couldn't create a list, like a hockey team. How many players on a hockey team, Phil? I mean,
20
maybe
this season.
Yeah, 20. So if you have one parent per player come in as a visitor now, 20 more people in one of these rinks, I don't think would be a super spreader, so to speak. And it's too bad you couldn't have a list for that piece or something.
No, I get it.
Yeah.
My feeling is that I think a lot of these places are trying to keep it
I get it.
Maybe, so to speak. I don't know.
That's true.
Again, if I had a son or daughter playing, hockey or basketball or swimming or whatever, and I couldn't go watch them play, I mean, I'd be heartbroken. But I would like to think I would understand too. It's just not, as much as we want it to be, it's not the same.
No.
And we just have to ride it out. And that stinks if your kid's a senior. I get it. I totally get that. There may be some games we're not allowed to cover, and I won't like that personally, but what's complaining going to do? It's not going to do me any good or anybody else. So, hey, we'll just hope for the best.
Well, it's better than the 2020 spring season, the way that played out and did not play out for sure. Yeah.
You are a wise man, Mr. Newell. Yes.
That's no, I've never heard that before, Phil. That's I'm not sure. Yeah.
I'll say this. I know I mentioned back in the fall that I thought the fall season was kind of a litmus test for the winter and, how it could be played safely and presented and whatnot. I think right now we're going to see the same thing, whether we will have that fall season that Nick alluded to, and hopefully a safe spring after that. I know there are still questions about can they do football and whatnot. But hopefully the fact that we're getting winter season off the ground and can do so safely is a good harbinger for hopefully that fall to football season. Because I know there are an awful lot of young men out there who are eager to play football and get out in the snow. As one person told me the other day, maybe we'll get to play in a blizzard. I don't know that would be thrilling for those of us covering it, but it might be awful fun to play in. So we shall see.
Yeah. And that's a whole nother topic. I thought we'd save that one, but there's a lot to talk about on spring 2, if you will, as Nick was pointing out, as to, and what's involved with spring 2 and how that plays out. But football is involved with spring 2, which starts right at the end of February.
I guess in due time, right? Well, can we do a cliffhanger on a podcast? Come back. The future.
Come back in a few weeks, or next week. And we'll tell you more. We'll tell you more next week. That's safe, right? That's safe. That's a safe thing to say.
Absolutely.
So there you go. Well, we're getting the hang of this teasing stuff here, but little promotion, so on. But hopefully you guys had a nice New Year's, and we'll see you again soon here in 2021.
Great. Thanks, guys. Happy New Year.
You got it.
Happy New Year.